I've come down to the Felder in-house show here in Milton Keynes to have a look at their combination machines. Now, there's a lot of impressive machinery here in the Felder range and the Format 4 range, which is downstairs. But what I've really come to look at is the hammer range. I've had an interest in this since being recommended it by a cabinet maker called Dylan Hartley, who I bumped into some years ago, and he used a hammer table saw. I'm not entirely sure if it was this model. But I've been looking at the combination machines, and since looking online and looking at brochures, I found it really quite difficult to get my head around the difference between the different machines, because taking, for example, the B3 range, this is the top end B3, you've got three different variations of that. You've got the top end B3 Perform, then the B3 Winner is a step down, which is mainly, it has a shorter sliding table. And then the B3 Basic, which is much more compact. Now this whole hammer range is aimed at, it's sort of aimed at fairly serious hobbyists or low end. They don't really class it as industrial, but for the sort of use we use in our business, what they've said to me is, if you're using that maybe a few hours every day, couple of hours every day, or half a day to a day, 1 or 2 days a week, then it's going to do fine. If you're moving to the Felder range, these bigger saws, then they're genuine industrial use, and they're for day in, day out use. So what's really the difference between them? This is why I came down. I wanted to see and feel the machines and understand the difference. Now, one of the big differences with the hammer range is the sliding tables. Now, this one's locked off. Sliding tables are on a ball bearing system. So just listen to that. Whereas the Felder range and the Format 4 range have they call it the X-roll. Now that, you can maybe hear a slight difference, but if you're moving it, the feel is so much smoother and more solid. And having felt that, it is kind of hard to then go back to this and see this as good. However, for the price range, these are a good piece of kit as far as I can tell. And the important thing is, when it's fully extended, is there much sideways play? And really there isn't. There's very little. That does feel solid. So the piece of kit that the two pieces of kit I'm seriously considering are either the B3, which is the saw and spindle moulder. That's not actually here, but there's other ones that have different combinations. Or the K3, which is just the saw, because I'm trying to make up my mind whether I need the spindle moulder that much, or whether my money would be better spent on the K3 with various upgrades. So to give you an overview of the range, the K seems to just be the saw. The C range is the full combination, which is saw here, spindle moulder, this hood obviously comes off, and planer. So that's the C range, and then you get different, for the different models within the C range, you get different lengths of sliding table and other different features. So it's the B range that is a combination machine, but that's just saw and spindle, and so they don't actually have that on show. So it's a sort of, I've been sort of picturing in my head a mixture of the K, which is just the table saw, with the C range with the spindle, because the way they're assembled, this whole part here is the B, and then that part is tacked on. And this is the kind of thing I came to help myself visualize, because I just couldn't get my head around the details of these things. So I've talked about the sliding table. You can only go up to 2.5 meters in the hammer range. So that's the B3 Perform has the 2.5 meter table, and looks a little different to all of these because it does have a longer base. So it has a base that looks a lot more like this Felder machine. So that's the K500 range. That's kind of the lower level Felder industrial range. I think just talking some more about the differences and what it is that makes the hammer range cheaper, because that's the kind of thing I wanted to understand. So you look at this arrangement here, this is what you'd push your board up against, and you have ways to stop that to precise angles, and this stop pin will go down. I'll struggle to do it with one hand. But that's a pretty solid, well-made thing, a pretty good extrusion here. However, you move up to, say, the K700 range, and that extrusion is noticeably beefier. It feels more solid, it feels that bit more rigid. The other difference is in this Felder range, the steel parts, like this thing here, this is 5mm steel, whereas the equivalent parts on this frame and that lower bit, they're 3mm steel. So that just gives you a feel for what it is that you're paying for that's different. The motors in these are not so powerful. However, I've been assured the power of the motor in this would comfortably cut a 4-inch thickness of solid oak, which is plenty for us. Now, the other thing that I needed to get my head around was various add-ons you can get for these machines. And you see them in a brochure and you think, what's the difference? So a key thing for me is the fence. Now, coming here and seeing the full combination machines, which have a planer as well, it has convinced me I don't want to get that, because I was considering that. It was a bit of a luxury, because I have an old wadkin planer anyway. I was tempted to look at getting a planer that has these fancy spiral cutters, if you can see that, which leaves a beautiful finish. But the issue is with so that's the C range, the issue is with the C range, is the fence that you use for the planer, which is this aluminium thing. It's actually planer fence, and that goes on a rail here, is the same fence that you use for the table saw. So you take that off, you spin it round, and it engages into the same profile here. That fence, which is the only one available for the C range, has quite a lot of play on it. For me, it's too much flex. When you go to the B range, where the planer doesn't have to be accommodated, the standard fence is like this, and that is altogether more rigid. It's got a round bar, still aluminium extrusion, but the way that it clamps on, it's just a turn screw to go tight, and the general rigidity of it is better. Also, there is an upgrade option for the B range and the K range, which is just like the B range without the spindle moulder. There's an upgrade to that fence, which is a cast iron fence, which is identical to the one that's usefully just mounted on here, so we can have a look at that. And I've decided this is an upgrade that I would want to pay for. So you have a cast iron bar there, which is rock solid, and this bit is cast iron as well. I think pretty sure it's the same profile here, which is fine, and that you can turn 90 degrees, so you can just cut small pieces near the blade. This has the quicker release, so that just clamps down. The other nice thing about it, though, is it has fine adjustment, so you can get it to your mark, which you do. I'm not sure if you can see that. You literally just line your fence up to the scale there and eye it down. If you want to do fine adjustment, you lock this one off, you don't lock the lever off, and you turn this, and as you're turning that, you can adjust it, which I think would be a very useful feature for precision and those little tweaks that you need to make. So I'm thinking of my wadkin saw, where it's got a very similar solid, very similar solid mechanism there, but it's quite imprecise, and if it's just half a mil off, you have to loosen it off, and then you just have to kind of knock it and try and knock it the right amount, then you knock it too far and you knock it back. So coming to the show has really helped me to see the benefit of certain features that are going to improve accuracy and speed. Now, something else I wanted to know about was for compactness. I'm not sure exactly the workshop we're going to move into yet, because we had one in our sites that's sort of fallen through, and I'm also not entirely sure about the shape of the business going forward. As some of you will know, if you've been following me on the Festool Talk group, I've been talking about the challenges of getting the size of business right and getting it profitable. So we don't quite yet know the space, although we're trying to get that pinned down soon. I just want to know that I've got flexibility to not have these bits sticking out in a potentially small space. I'll need these on for cutting the full sheets, and I definitely want the biggest machine so I can put a full sheet on there and process it all down. But I wanted to know that I could take this outrigger off, and it turns out you can very easily do that. I've just been demonstrated it. I'm afraid I didn't take a video, but you just undo these knobs here, and that disconnects this whole frame from this assembly, which is just simply grooved. So you take that off. Come to think of it, before that you would be taking this off, which again is just a simple few nuts, bolts that come off. So that lifts off, the frame lifts off, and the frame simply comes up off here. So that just lifts off there. And then the nice thing is this arm, it doesn't come off, that just folds flat, and this is a magnet, so that will fold flat, and you can see where that touches. So once that's folded flat, that's out of the way, and it's a very compact machine. And this whole series, the Hammer series, is clearly designed for compactness for small workspaces. Now it does though have a lot of professional features, so you can have a scoring unit fitted, which is something that I want to have. So I've got the option of cutting melamine precisely. On the spindle moulder, if we go for that, so that would be the B3. The standard hood would be like this one, which doesn't have any positive location. So you have to put it down, you have to find your threaded holes, put it back in like that. The upgraded hood would just slot in. You've got some locating pins, not sure you can see them, and you get this little extra bar here, which gives you fine adjustment. So it's got zero location, drop it into those pins, then you can adjust it to where you want it to be, which is probably worth having, because one of the downsides of a combination machine is you're swapping between your processes a lot, so you want to speed that up. So if you can drop that hood exactly back into location where it was and start cutting again, then that's all the better. Another good add-on that I've just been shown on these machines is the router attachment. So we're currently doing a lot of routing. We don't currently have a spindle moulder. You can fit into the spindle there a collet that will take router bits, so you can just carry on with those same cutters. Now there are other add-ons like extension tables. This thing will go on the end, and it will also go on the side as an additional way of supporting your boards. Another add-on I'm thinking of getting on top of this, which is your main outrigger for board cutting, you can add on this. This is just what comes as standard with the smaller machine, but this could be added on to the end of the table on the other machine, which should allow me to cut smaller pieces, and putting that work support I just showed you there just gives me more options, just for conveniently and quickly cutting small pieces to length without the whole outrigger sticking out and taking up space in the workshop. So I think that's about everything that I've learned. I was just saying to Carl, the salesman, that I wanted to make a video while I'm here. I wanted to make the sort of video I wished I could have found when I was considering these machines. I hope that's answered some of your questions, given you a bit of context. I think what I'll finish with is maybe just another sweep around them, looking at some of the details. So if there's anything you wanted to see a bit closer, hopefully you might see that, and then I'll sign off. Okay, as ever, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time, or at least you'll see me.